So hi, I'm Bob Behnke with Franklin International. We make Titebond products, #1 selling wood glue in the world. So again, what we do is we are consumer branded. We do have a industrial group, which Franklin International, the booth next door. So,
Yeah.
so all types of woodworking glues from interior to exterior.
Awesome. So as I mentioned before, in the guitar context, I'm going to ask the questions in that context, right? There's a big a question mark in the guitar world, which is, can you use Titebond on oily woods? Meaning, can you glue maple, a maple neck with a rosewood fretboard, for example?
And so the answer to that is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, wood glues bond to cellulose. They don't bond to the pores of the wood, and a lot of people think that it's a mechanical bond to the pores of the wood. That's not the case.
Okay.
It bonds to cellulose. So what happens on the tropical woods is the tropical trees produce an oil to protect them from, insects and termites and things.
Yeah.
So, but it also protects the cellulose because that cellulose is actually sugar that they can break down and use for a food source.
Yep.
So what you need to do is to remove the oil from the wood to get to the cellulose. So usually we recommend acetone. So take a white rag, wipe with acetone until the rag comes back clean.
Mm-hmm.
Now if you wipe it and you come back with that orangish, oily-ish looking material, just keep wiping until it comes back clean. Then get the glue on right away. You don't have to wait for the acetone to evaporate because it is soluble in the glue and actually will help with the bond.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so then just glue it up, get it together right away before the oil comes back to the surface, and you'll have a strong bond.
Awesome. I never heard that, so that's amazing.
Yeah, so a lot of people say you can't glue ipe, which is very oily, very hard wood. But you just needed to wipe it with acetone. Now with ipe, you'll end up getting tired of wiping it because it is very, very oily. And you'll end up gluing it anyway, but as much of oil as you can get off, as much cellulose as you can get to be involved in the bond, the stronger that bond's going to be.
Okay, and an alternative glue would be the polyurethane one, right? For oil or not?
But the issue comes in sometimes, yes, and you can use polyurethane glues for that. The issue sometimes is that with a polyurethane glue, they foam. They do bond to the lignin a little better in some cases.
Okay.
But really, all you have to do is clean off the oils or the tannic acids. Especially like with say an ebony.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of tannic acids and a lot of stuff. Just wipe that off, and then the water-based wood glues work just fine.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much. Second question will be, sometimes it's hard to know how much glue to apply. What will be like the guidelines for that?
So there's really no official guideline for that. Now our guideline would be 250 square feet per gallon.
Okay.
Which is relatively meaningless to most people. What that works out to be is if you take 3 sheets of copy paper, that's how thick the glue line needs to be. Okay. Now, in most cases, people are going to overdo it. But if you put your pieces together and you get squeeze out, then you've got at least enough glue to cover the full surface.
Okay.
Right? So by covering the full surface with glue, you optimize the strength of the bond itself. As long as the glue hasn't dried before you get it together.
Okay, so very little squeeze, not good. A lot of squeeze is not a problem, but...
It's not a problem, but it can be messy, and you use extra glue, and of course we thank you for that.
Yeah, right. And another question would be like how much pressure? Because sometimes I overclamp the pieces, and I'm afraid that I'm doing something wrong, so.
You actually are doing something wrong. So we tested the glue, and we did it at 0.6 psi. We did it our recommended psi, which is 100 psi for softwood, 150 for medium density like maple, and then for hard tropicals, we'd say 200 or so. That's actually wrong. There was a paper that came out in, I think, 1998 that said you could go up to 1,000 psi without losing any strength, but that was on softwoods. So we tested softwoods, and then at the 3 different pressures, which is the 0.6, the are recommended, and then up to 1,000 PSI. And we did that on poplar, maple, and Brazilian rosewood.
Yeah.
What we found was the difference between the 0.6, in every case, the 0.6 PSI, the really light camber, all we took was a 5-pound weight and put it on the test piece. That always gave us the strongest bond.
Oh, okay.
Always. Now, it differed with the hardness of the wood. So with poplar, which is a soft wood, we found that you lost about 10 to 15% of the strength by going up to 1,000 PSI. With the maple, you lost about 25 to 30%. Mm-hmm. On the Brazilian rosewood, we lost between 50 and 100% of the strength. In some cases, we took it out of the clamps, 1,000-pound clamp pressure, and it just came apart.
Oh my God, okay.
So we've kind of changed our recommendations for gluing to use the least amount of clamp pressure it takes to get your pieces together.
Okay.
Now, obviously, if your joinery is not really good, you're going to be clamping harder to get that together.
Yep.
But if your joinery is good, and it makes sense, if your joinery is good, typically you don't have to clamp very hard, and your joints are going to be stronger.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Because in the guitar world, we want to have the least amount of glue line possible, right? That's like
and that
the
is
goal.
True, right?
So I guess,
but
would you say?
What we found was the thicker the glue line, the stronger the bond.
Okay, good to know. So should we encourage people to embrace glue lines, or?
I mean, you can. I mean, we're not here to tell you what to do or what not to do, and all that. If it's working for you, you don't have to change. But if you find that some of your joints are coming apart, try these other techniques. Maybe let the glue line clamp a little lighter, things like that.
Okay, cool. Regarding flexibility, because guitar necks flex, right? Mm-hmm. Would you say that the original is the ideal for that? Meaning, because there is some examples of guitars that have fretboards coming apart, Right. So is that the right
well, in most cases,
product, or?
Well, in most cases, because the fretboards tend to be an exotic wood.
Yeah, rosewood.
It's usually because they're not glued well. That's why they're coming apart.
Okay.
So in those cases, glue them well, get them wiped down till you don't see anything, and then get them lightly clamped, right? So again, rosewood, anything above 100 PSI, you're going to lose 50% of the strength. Yeah. Is what we found. Mm-hmm. So you want to use the lightest clamping strength that you can on those fretboards, and you're going to get a good bond, and it won't matter.
Okay. Some people reduce the glue in order to make it penetrate in some cases for some repairs and stuff like that. Is that recommended? Would you lose the strength?
You can dilute the glues by about 5% without starting to lose the strength.
That would be the maximum, 5%?
5% is, then you start to lose, you lose viscosity, about 50% of the viscosity, but you lose 10% of the strength. So every 5% after that, you start losing strength on that glue.
Okay.
So you really don't want, I mean, we make products that are lower in viscosity if you need to have a low viscosity glue, but you really need to have your solids around at least 45 before.
Okay, cool.
Before you glue up. So
more than that, you will not get a guaranteed.
That is correct.
Okay, good to know. Okay, so in the guitar community, there is a lot of, well, I think most of them like to build acoustic instruments, right? Right. And the gluing of the bridge is very important, as you may imagine, right?
On that.
Exactly. So what would be your recommendation for that?
So we recommend our Titebond Extend. The Titebond Extend has the best heat resistance of our glues, and it has also got very good creep resistance. Yep. So, you're putting a lot of pressure on from the strings, and then if somebody leaves that guitar in a hot car, with the instrument strung to full tension, that puts a lot of stress on that. That glue will hold up to those conditions. Okay. Absolutely hold up to those conditions. Other glues tend to soften very quickly with, like our Titebond Original, not the Extend version. But the Titebond Original has a very sharp line where it softens. Yeah. And so eventually that'll creep and pop off. The Extend will not do that. Okay. Plus, if you ever need to repair it, you can steam it open, so it's not water resistant. So you can repair it without damaging the surface by hitting it with a little bit of steam and water.
Well, Mr. Bob, thank you very much for the interview. That was amazing. The guitar community will be very grateful from your advice because there is a lot of misinformation.
Oh yeah, and we see it all the time. And again, every bottle of Titebond has an 800 number. Between 8 and 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, you can call. You're going to get a person who is very knowledgeable about gluing. You ask for me.
Right.
If I'm in the office, I'll answer your calls.
Okay, good to know. All right, thank you very much, man.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.